I'm generally a pretty liberal person, but when I saw videos of ICE jumping out of unmarked vehicles and nabbing people off the street, that's when I actually bought my first AR-15. So I'm pretty new to this, but you know, the Second Amendment's for all of us. And now I'm seeing videos of Black Panthers out in Minneapolis, you know, chasing down ICE and other police and stuff. I think that's what it's all about. You know, we're facing tyranny right now, and I want to be prepared for if that stuff comes to my neighborhood.
What have you sort of thought about it? I've seen the same videos you're talking about. I've seen some of the stuff in person that you're kind of talking about. I've seen some people on the right wing take issue when the left arms up.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, the amendments to the Constitution are for everybody. You know, we're all American. We all have those rights, and we should all be using them. That's my opinion on it.
So I'll give two examples. So one is that people eat too much meat, right? And if they were to cut down on their consumption of meat, then they would it would actually really help the planet. But people are not willing to give up meat. Yeah, you know, some people will be willing to, but other people, they may be willing to, but they have a weakness of will. They say, wow, this steak is just too juicy, I can't do it. I'm one of those, by the way. So, you know, but so here's the thought, right? So it turns out that we know a lot about, we have these intolerance to, for example, I have milk intolerance. And some people are intolerant to crayfish. So possibly we can use human engineering to make it the case that we're intolerant to certain kinds of meat, to certain kinds of bovine proteins. And there's actually analogs of this in life. There's this thing called the Lone Star tick, where if it bites you, you will become allergic to meat. I can sort of describe the mechanism. So that's something that we can do through human engineering. We can kind of possibly address really big world problems through human engineering.
I frankly think that crisis initiation is really tough. And it's very hard for me to see how the United States president can get us to war with Iran. Which leads me to conclude that if, in fact, compromise is not coming, that the traditional way of America gets to war is what would be best for U.S. interests. Some people might think that Mr. Roosevelt wanted to get us into World War II, as David mentioned. You may recall we had to wait for Pearl Harbor. Some people might think Mr. Wilson wanted to get us into World War I. You may recall he had to wait for the Lusitania episode. Some people might think that Mr. Johnson wanted to send troops to Vietnam. You may recall he had to wait for the Gulf of Tonkin episode. We didn't go to war with Spain until the until the Maine exploded. And may I point out that Mr. Lincoln did not feel he could call out the Federal Army until Fort Sumter was attacked, which is why he ordered the commander at Fort Sumter to do exactly that thing which the South Carolinians had said would cause an attack. So if, in fact, the Iranians aren't going to compromise, it would be best if somebody else started the war. One can combine other means of pressure with sanctions. I mentioned that explosion on August 17th. We could step up the pressure. I mean, look, people, Iranian submarines periodically go down. Someday one of them might not come up. Who would know why? We can do a variety of things if we wish to increase the pressure. I'm not advocating that, but I'm just suggesting that this is not a either-or proposition. You know, it's just sanctions has to succeed or other things. We are in the game of using covert means against the Iranians. We could get nastier. If
you could send one message to Americans 50 years in the future, what would it be?
Don't send your sons to finish what politicians start.
Slaves used to work all day, every day, with no pay. But they got free food, water, and shelter. Today, we work all day, nearly every day, and we get paid. But the money we make, we spend on food, water, and shelter. We're still slaves. The only thing that has changed is the illusion of freedom.
So let's drop this whole thing about Ireland belonging to the Irish. I don't believe that's a thing. I think this is something people need to unlearn now. You know, our bloodline is Irish. Go and check your DNA history and see if that's even true before you start spitting those facts. Do you get what I'm saying? I hope that's not rude or anything, but you know, I'm a very blunt person when it comes to these kind of things. But the last thing I would like to say is when you look at this history of Irish people 100 years down the line, people from all different kinds of nations, you won't even be able to trace their bloodline to it being Irish or not. all of a sudden we're going to just be considered Irish. Because Ireland is so young, we're in this mindset that this whole brown skin or different skin being on our turf, which is a predominantly white nation, doesn't make sense. And that's fine. You know what? That's fine. But like, this is something that's going to have to be unlearned. You know, Padraig Pearse, I don't know how long that was, but Padraig Pearse was in a nation where it was just full of white people. But how did he know Irish people were actually, you know, present in front of him? I'm gonna stop rambling because I'm just getting a bit like I'm getting riled up. But you know what I mean.
Do not comply. Do not comply. 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 Do not comply. Do not comply.
They're all assholes anyway, you know. Every politician in the world is a son of a bitch. Anyway, they're all going to steal your money and raise taxes. You know, it doesn't matter what they say. They're always lying. That's their profession, to be a liar.